morning, and thank you for joining us today on Lifeline Connect. And as we all know, Devora Rice Movement, DRM, as we know, is a movement started during pandemic to reach out to all the different needs that arose out of the pandemic situation. So today we have gathered together under this platform called the Lifeline Connect, where life's questions are answered. Questions related to, is there a God? Existential questions, questions related to health, safety, and so on. So today amongst us, we have Reverend Albert PJ. He is the founder and executive director of Abhayam Trust. And in this, through this Abhayam Trust, he reaches out to people who are suffering and struggling with addictions. And it is an NGO which reaches out to people and helps them to overcome their addictions and live a life worth living. So today we have amongst us Reverend Albert, and he would be walking us through what he does and how his NGO helps people around people with addictions. Thank you, Reverend Albert, for making the time to be with us today. And thank you for addressing our group. Please.
It's a joy to have all of you here. It's a joy for me to be here. So thank you for the opportunity. Let's give me a minute while I just get my PowerPoint up. Well, we are here to talk primarily about addictions. Now, you might look at this picture and say, this is so unrealistic. Well, I've actually traveled to Africa and I've seen this. I've actually seen somebody like this. So this is real. And so is the whole problem of addiction. It's a huge problem. It's getting worse. It's only getting really, really bad. Um, Let me just go on. I'm sure you've heard the term addiction. How would you define the term addiction? We are a small group, so you can unmute and tell us, what do you think is addiction? How would you define the word addiction?
Anything that is that overpowers the person. It could
Mhm.
be it could be in relation to frequency, intensity, duration.
Okay,
So
that's a good
TV,
definition.
watching screen time could also be an addiction because of the
Okay,
duration we spend.
okay. Anybody else? Okay, let me show you what the dictionary says. The dictionary has two definitions: particularly dependent on a particular substance or devoted to a particular interest or activity. This is how the dictionary defines the word addiction. Let me just add some more words just to further explain the word addiction so it becomes a little more easier for us to understand. Compulsion, compulsion, fixation, craving, habit, dependence, obsession. These are words that's quite connected to the word addiction. Okay? Now, what are the different kinds of addictions that we know about? This one I'm sure you can all speak. If you can unmute and tell me what are the different kinds of addictions you know about.
Usually, when we say addictions, we think about substance abuse like drugs and alcohol and all of that. But I would think it is also anything. It could be food, it could be um, anything that overpowers a person.
Okay, what else? Anybody else?
Looks like we
So
have a
nobody?
good listener bunch.
No, nobody seems to be talking. Okay, let me show you what I have. I have divided addictions into two main categories. The first category I call as behavioral addictions, under which there is sexual addictions, which means, we're talking about people that cannot think about anything else but sex all the time. Okay, sexual addiction, gambling. You must have heard of people who earn 5,000 rupees, spend 6,000 on lottery tickets. This is the group of people. Yeah. Internet. Now, this is a subject by itself. In fact, I should come another day and talk about gadget addiction itself. And I've done an intense research on gadget addiction, and it has actually overwhelmed me to see how harmful it is. And how the world post the pandemic is really struggling. So, internet, all your social media, all of that come there. Addiction to shopping, okay? Everybody says it's common with women, but trend has changed. It's become common with men also. If you walk down Brigade Road, you'll find more men's fashion. So men have caught up with women. Computer games, very common with children today. They kind of get hooked on and pornography. Now this is one addiction I would like to talk a little bit more about. How many of you have heard of this person? Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is the worst serial killer the world has ever known. In fact, the term serial killer came out because of this guy. Now, he is known to have raped and killed more than 200 women. He was finally caught and he was put on an electric chair. That's the punishment he received. But just a couple of days before he received his punishment, somebody by name James Dobson interviews him. And James Dobson is the person who is part of this organization called Focus on the Family. Um, so James, gets to interview Ted and he asks Ted, "What happened to you? Why are you like this?" So Ted goes on to explain. He says, "You know what? As a teenager, my family moved to a new house and I was exploring the house. In the backyard, I tumbled over some books. I took them, quickly hid them under my bed, and began to fantasize with them. And then he says this, he says, what you see of me today is that addiction that never got dealt with. Living in an urban context, this is one addiction that grips many young people. In fact, even children. Today, if you have a smartphone, even if you don't want it, it pops up. And it's very difficult to control. In fact, there are apps that you can put into your phone that would block pornographic sites. But men and women are equally addicted to pornography. So let me go on with my behavioral addiction. Addiction to sleeping. We're talking about people that sleep 12 to 15 hours a day and still think it's not enough. Overeating, very common with thin people. They want to put on weight, they start eating, and then it becomes an addiction. Now, this is new for cities like Bangalore, exercise addictions, and then overworking. And I like this picture, this guy's on the phone, he's on the laptop, yeah, and he's on the throne also. Behavioral addictions. And then there's a whole lot that gets added on to the list. In fact, selfies is one of the things that got added on recently. It's become an addiction now. People are just can't get enough of taking their own photographs. Okay, that's behavioral addictions. The second category is what I call the substance addictions, under which there is drugs, and there's a whole list of them. But this is one of the most common ones that we see in India. Then there is prescription drugs. That's basically abusing medicines. Okay, now if a doctor prescribes a medicine and says, take this tablet 3 times a day for 5 days, it is drug use. You continue to take after 5 days, it is drug abuse. Simple as that. Okay. And then there is alcohol and of course smoking. Okay. Addiction has four characteristics. Any addiction. You look at any addiction and you'll find these four characteristics. Yeah. The first one is that there is a loss of control. Now, if you look at an alcoholic walking, you will find him walking all over the place. The reason is he's thinking he's walking straight, but there's such a loss of control that his balance is off. A lot of accidents happen because of addiction. If you go into central jail and talk to people who've committed murder, and as you keep talking to them, they will say, I didn't know how it happened. I didn't want it to happen. I wish it didn't happen. And as you probe further, you'll find out that it happened in the influence of addictions. The second characteristic is that there is a compulsive preoccupation. So if you're a student, you just can't focus on your studies. You'll always have a preoccupation. The third characteristic is that even though you know the negative consequences, you still continue to do what you're doing. In fact, a cigarette packet has these things written on it. that smoking kills, smoking causes cancer, it is injurious to health, and so on. But they still continue to use it even though they know the negative consequences. Now, I have worked in the red light area of Delhi and Calcutta. And as you drive into Old Delhi, into the red light area, you have these huge hoardings which say HIV and AIDS, beware, it will kill you. You think people who drive in there can't see? But they will still do it, and that's a characteristic. And then there is a fourth characteristic. That is that pretty much every person who is on addiction has attempted suicide at least once in their lives. And very sadly, most of them are successful. An addict cannot stop on his own. Now, why do I say this? I say this because you will hear a lot of young people saying, I'm in control. I know when to stop. I'll take care of myself. All that is a lie. The reason being, the first characteristic itself is that there is a loss of control. Okay? Children of addicts are significantly lot more likely to initiate addictions during their adolescence. Why? Because kids walk in the footsteps of their parents. Now, if you come across people who you find that there is some kind of an addiction, or their parents have some kind of an addiction, and the child is okay, tell them to pull their socks up. Tell them to be cautious because they stand much more a chance of getting into addiction than compared to other children. So, how do you avoid getting addicted? Simple, just say no. I always say this when I do programs in colleges. I say, don't take the first puff. And what happens when you don't take the first puff? You don't take the second puff. Sounds like a joke, but that's the truth. And as I do this in colleges, a lot of them have already taken first and second and many other puffs. And I would challenge them and say, make it your last today. Stop it. You know. All right. So, what are the causes for addiction? Any answers? What causes addiction? You can either say it or just put it into the chat. Lack of connection. Yeah. Okay. Depression. Yes. Anything else? Family issues. Yeah. Definitely. Yes. Meaninglessness. Yeah. Basically saying no aim, yeah, no purpose, yeah. Lonely, yeah. Terminal illness, yes, it's a possibility, yes. Alright. Now, we've done quite a bit of research on this, and we feel that these are all of what we've said is true. In fact, there's lot more. Want to escape pain? Yes, very much. Um, but these are the four top reasons, yeah. Experimenting, keeping young people in mind primarily. Peer pressure, one of the biggest causes. Curiosity, okay, bad friendship. Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, curiosity. In fact, curiosity and experimenting are two different things, if we can understand that. But I believe that this is the most powerful one, the media influence. Now, I come from a media background. I've been an RJ for a while. I support the media. The media is good. But I want to show you the flip side of media. Um, just to show you where the media fails. Yeah. Okay, I think I got one. Stardom, yes. Okay. Um, what would you say is the movie on love over the last maybe 100 years? I think the chat seems to be working well, so you can put your answers there. What do you think is the movie on love over the last maybe 100 years? No idea. Is that a movie name? Uh, okay,
No.
so what do you think do you know which movie is this? Yeah, this is Dostana. Yeah, that's Abhishek Bachchan and John Abraham there. Now, these two guys have made a movie. This is Indian movie where the message comes across is it's okay for man and man to live together. Indian movies. Okay? The media declares that Titanic is the movie on love over the century. Okay? Now, I'm not saying that, it's the media that says that. Okay? Now, for those of us who've seen The Titanic, if you're the type that don't see movies, very good, praise God. But for those who've seen it, the Titanic is an interesting story. There's a poor boy and a rich girl. They come into the ship and they are in love. And I think, according to the movie, they've been together for about 2 days, about 48 hours. But in 48 hours, they go down to the basement and they have sex together. And so, my question is that true love? I've titled today's talk as True Love Waits. The question is that true love? But the media declares that this is the movie of love of the century. Let me go on. This is an ad film. Okay, it's an ad for Ferrari car. Very rarely would people really look at the car though. Now this is a hoarding. It's a advertisement basically for a soap. Wonder how many people look at the soap. This is a newspaper cutting. The news says that it became cold. But why a picture like that? The reason is because that's how the newspaper sells. Look at this image. She's actually posing for a mobile watch. But what is she showing? Don't answer. Now, this is one of the top um, Hindi film actress, and she's actually selling handbags for women. But have you ever wondered why is she the model? Who's the customer? The customer generally is boyfriends. And these bags are very expensive. If I buy this for my wife might disown me. But the reason she's there is because the target audience is rich young boyfriends. Now, why am I telling you all this? The media, most media giants want to pervert the minds of young people. And I think they're successful because we do not ask questions. And one of the primary causes for addiction is a lack of love for yourself. And that's why I titled today's talk as True Love Waits. Let me go on with my talk on addiction. There are different stages or types of addiction, drug use. There's an experimental use, when a person tries out a drug for a couple of times and then slowly gets into it. There's a recreational use. Okay, people use because of, they go for a holiday or so on. Situational use, medical students is a classic example where they start taking pills to stay awake to study. And by the time they finish their exam, they would take downers to go to sleep. And by the time they finish, or even before they finish their medical students studies, they are into addiction, intensive use, and then dependent use. Now, here's what I would say. You're either a user or you're not a user. There is nothing in between. There isn't a good user. There isn't a controlled user. All those terms are for convenience. Okay, so you're either a user or you're not a user. Okay, now let me show you signs and symptoms of addictions. Now, be cautious not to make a conclusion with just one of them. Okay, let's begin. Sudden or noticeable personality changes, severe mood swings, changing peer groups, decreased interest in leisure time activity, irresponsible attitude toward work or school, depressed feeling most of the time, dramatic changes in personal hygiene, changes in eating or sleeping habits, and smell of alcohol, which is a yuck smell. Sudden weight loss, tendency towards being dishonest, being absent, especially on Monday. Why Monday? Because they freak out on Saturday and Sunday. Frequent job losses or changes, turned off attitude if the topic is discussed. There are things or money missing from home. There's always a problem with relations, especially with the family. There's a negative behavior by the person, and of course, obvious signs of physical intoxication. Okay. Now, I want us to look at this image. Yeah. Now, I'm bringing my cursor here. Now, this is the first image. This is an image of a scanned brain, And this is the last one, okay, here, right here, after 3 cigarettes. Now, you know what's missing from this first image to the last image? Yeah, the red color here, right? Now, if I'm to say that with 3 cigarettes, life is gone out of the brain, would you think I'm exaggerating? Let me tell you, as a professional, that's true. You know, in our world today, they see some of these things as so lightly, but they don't realize the impact and the effect that it has on our body. Um, Addiction does leave you with physical and psychological problems. Okay. Um, it causes a lot of what we said has causes for addiction. In fact, addiction becomes a cause for depression. Addiction becomes a cause for loneliness and for frustration. Addiction becomes a cause for a lot of physical issues. Okay. Now, let me just jump through this and get into my next. Um, Now, Jesus has done something about this problem. He has come to liberate and take us away from such a problem. And the Bible says, if the Son has set you free, you are free indeed. Some scriptures just to help us understand addiction. Everything is permissible for me, but not everything is beneficial. Okay? Everything is permissible for me, but I will not be mastered by anything. First Corinthians 6, verse 12. Do not get drunk on wine, which leads to debauchery. Instead, be filled with the Spirit. Ephesians 5:18. Okay? Colossians 2:15. And having disarmed the powers and authorities, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by the cross. Colossians 2:15. He who does what is sinful is of the devil, because the devil has been sinning from the beginning. The reason the Son of God appeared was to destroy the devil's work. 1 John 3:8. It was for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. You, my brothers, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the sinful nature. Rather, serve one another in love. Okay, so just want to take you through steps of intervention. First, stop all rescue missions. Yeah, family members would usually try and protect and make things kind of easy for the person with addiction. Don't do that. Don't enable them. Yeah, which means don't pay bills. Don't support the habit that they are into. Time your intervention. Yeah, be specific. Now these are two important things. If you do an intervention at the wrong time, it could really backfire. Yeah. State the consequences. Tell the family member that unless he gets professional help, nothing is going to happen. And as a family, when you make a statement, be sure that you hold on to that statement. Find strength. Whenever you're dealing with, even with somebody in the family who has an addiction, get help to be with you. Get somebody else involved also. Okay. And listen, listen. You never know. Sometimes they might be genuinely trying to change. They just need us to hear them out. So do that. Yeah. Um, I'm going to pause here and share my story with you. Just want to tell you, what happened to me and why I do what I do. I need to begin with when I mean, even before I was born, um, you know, I, um, I actually grew up in a home where my dad was an army officer, and I have an older brother. And after my brother, when my mom was expecting me, they wanted a girl, and I was born. Now, wouldn't have had a problem with that, but my parents told me that when I was very small. They said, you know what, we didn't want you, we wanted a girl. And so as a child, I grew up feeling I'm not wanted, I don't belong, I'm not accepted. And soon this feeling grew on to I'm not wanted by the world, I'm not accepted. And I started to do things to please my dad. I excelled. in whatever I did. I was a distinction student throughout school, excelled in every extracurricular activity that the school had. All this to please my dad. And as a child, I can't remember any good memory, even though I excelled. I was good at music, good at elocution, quiz, good at sports, to the extent I used to run for the state at one time. And but still, I don't have good memories of my childhood. The only good memory that I had was when my mom would kind of force us to come to church with her and to be part of Sunday school. I somehow liked the Sunday school at that time. But as I grew up, I came into high school. I started to become wild. You know, I'd actually gone for a state level event and came back with the cup. And my dad looked at me and said, "Huh? Your school has gone so bad that you should get the cup." Now that kind of completely shattered me, and so began another phase in my life where I started to take revenge on on my dad and started to do things that would actually irritate him, and became really wild. My friends kind of began to take advantage of this and they would pose challenges to me. So, one of the challenges that came when I was in my ninth standard was if I could sleep in the cemetery one full night. And I actually did. I went and slept in the Hosur Road Cemetery one full night. Well, nothing happened after that. A little later, another challenge came, and the challenge was this: if I could smoke a cigarette in class when the teacher was there. I did it. And I thought it was, you know, I mean, it wasn't easy because the whole class was there. No, and they knew that I was sitting at the last bench and smoking. Now, what happened after that was my friends came and they lifted me up and they said, "Albert, you're the man, you're our leader." And I thought I found acceptance. And I thought it's the cigarette that gave me the acceptance. I soon graduated, not in studies. I graduated from smoking to alcohol, alcohol to drugs. And even before I knew it, I was what we call a mainline drug addict. I used to inject drugs. And because of this, I got into gang fights. I would beat up people. I always walked around with a knife in my pocket. Um, my dad couldn't handle all of this because I got caught with the police many times, in and out of jail. And this was not a kind of lifestyle that my family was known for. So my dad threw me out of home. I walked out gladly, went and lived with friends, soon ran out of friends, and eventually I was on the street. About 3.5 months of my life I've lived on the street. And from there, one of those days, as I lived on the street, I saw this friend of mine who used to copy from me when we were in school. I saw him coming towards me and I thought I'm going to get something. He saw me and he turned and walked away. And that's when I looked at myself and I asked this question: what happened to me? Why am I like this? And something that I learned as a child suddenly came back. And that was this: it was a song. The song was this: Jesus loves me, this I know. And I prayed my very first prayer and I said, God, do you really love me? I mean, look at this guy. He just walked off. Look at my family. They don't even want me. Do you really love me? And God gave me such a peace with which I knew that God does love me. I prayed my second prayer and I said, God, get me out of this mess. And then I walked out of that market that I slept that night, made a bonfire of all that I had in my pocket. And I remember very clearly I had a lighter, the lighter burst. And then I walked home and my mom was waiting at the door like she knew I was going to come back. Now, I know that God touched me that day because, firstly, I didn't go through any withdrawals. My life just changed overnight. And for somebody who's a multiple drug addict, who's an injecting drug user, I should have had severe withdrawals. In fact, I don't know if you understand withdrawals. Withdrawals is this painful process that the body goes through when you quit from your addiction. And sometimes withdrawals can really be long. Sometimes withdrawal can even be fatal. But for me, I didn't have any withdrawals. And I knew that God had touched me that day in that marketplace. And then I went back to college, passed out as the best student of the college I went to. Today, I have degrees from places I can't believe. And from there birthed a dream. And it took many years, of course, but that dream is what we do. We run an organization called Abhayam. Abhayam is a Sanskrit word, it actually means freedom. And we help people that struggle with any kind of addictions. The only condition is that you come in willingly and you stay with us for a season of 6 months. And it's His work. He sets people free. And that's what we do. And we believe that the change that happened in me is the change that only He can do. And we create a platform in Abhayam for people who come there to connect and meet with God. Yeah, so that's my story. Um, I'm now a full-time minister of God, and this is my full-time work. Me and my wife, we have two boys, and as a family, we've committed to serve God. Yeah, thank you so much. Any questions?
So thank you so much for sharing with us, Reverend Albert. And I think it was one of those very insightful, sharings. I am a psychologist myself, and I've been, I think we've studied addictions in our subject, and I don't think anybody explained it as beautifully as you have done today. And one of the things that I thought that I would wanted to want to ask you today was why the topic true love waits. Why how is true love waits related to addictions?
Okay. One of the behavioral pattern of addiction is you begin to dislike yourself, and when you don't like yourself, love is something that takes a back seat. And you kind of fake love, and the love that you experience and show others, it is not a love really. It's a love that is very demanding. It's a love that is very destructive, um, to the self and to others. But here is a love of God that causes us to wait, causes Him to wait. And I, even today, don't fully understand that love. That here's a God who is willing to wait for me because of His love, as against a world that wants it instantly. Addiction changes the moment you understand this love of God.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining it so beautifully. And I've been listening to some TEDx talks and all that. And there was this one TEDx talk that I remember where the guy explains how you overcome addictions is through connections. Usually, when somebody is addicted to substance or other stuff, people usually shy them away. They move them away from their lives. And these people, in order to you know uh, have that feeling of belonging, continue to do it, it becomes a vicious cycle, and they just stay there because of the lack of family and the lack of relationships in their life. Do you see that as anything important? Do you see that relationships are important for people who to overcome addictions?
Um, Very much, very much. In fact, we have a very strong emphasis on family. We are in our rehab as one big family. The whole concept of family is introduced again, and we want even family members of the members who come into Abhay to come meet with them, connect with them, and we try and restore relationships quite aggressively. We really want it to happen. There are occasions where it doesn't work sometimes, and then we become the family for them. So the whole aspect of family is very precious, very important, and so also true love, uh, love that is genuine, love that is without any conditions, and love that may be a bit of the extent of love that God has shown. So yeah, so it does play a very important part. Now, I would like to, pose a question to all of us. Now, we gave you causes and reasons and um, you know, why we get into addiction and so on. But what do you think is the primary reason a person gets into addiction? Maybe if you have, you could just put it into the chat or just unmute and speak. What do you think is the primary cause?
Loneliness. I mean, the answers on the chat.
Yeah, yeah.
Pleasure,
Loneliness,
self-love.
pleasure, love failure.
How about lack of self-worth? Like, they don't
I'd,
value
I'd like
themselves.
to I'd like to talk a little bit about love failure. Um, I don't agree with that term at all. There is no failure in love. It's either that you love or you don't love. Love is a choice. When I got married to my wife, I made a choice that I will love only Lali, my wife, in that particular way. I might see a more beautiful girl. I might see a girl who's a lot more smarter, but I will remember that this is a choice that I have made. And when you look at God, God made a choice to love me in spite of me being really, really horrible. So the whole uh, concept of love failure doesn't come. Love failure comes because our whole understanding and practice of love is wrong, is not done the right way. Okay. Um, Having said that, I'm coming back to my question again. What's the primary cause for addiction? Now, this might come as a surprise to some of us, but God has created us as addictive people. Now, the word addiction is a negative word, but think about it. I'm sure all of us have met with or connected with at least one person who is an addict. Let's say an alcoholic. Have you seen what he does if he doesn't get his alcohol or his drugs? He will do anything to get what he wants. He doesn't even mind killing a person to get the stuff that he wants. Can you imagine you and I being addicted to God like that? That we will do anything to restore and build and grow in our relationship with God, like an addict. That's one. The second thing is when Jesus becomes our addiction, one is enough, God Himself. But if it's not Jesus, you're not satisfied with one addiction. Most people that we work with have multiple addictions. But the moment they quit it all and they come into Christ, one addiction is enough. And that's the story of my life. And I believe that's why God created us that way. We are called to be, in that sense, addicted to Jesus. And that's why my topic, here's a God who waits for us because of his love. True love really waits. Cordilla, over to you.
Thank you for beautifully explaining the concept of true love waits. Um, there is two questions from the audience. One is, does moochers come under the category of addiction? I don't know what moochers are, so maybe it would be helpful to.
Yeah, I'm also I kind of know, but I want a clarification on that.
Okay, so Rosie, are you
So we'll
here?
wait for that.
Can you type in your message? And somebody is
You can
also,
send me a direct message, Rosie.
yeah. And this Sharmila, who's also asking like, how to come out from thoughts which is making us bad.
Good question. Very powerful question. Um, your thoughts, only you are in control, not even God. Okay. God cannot control your thoughts. Your thoughts are your thoughts. The only person who can change it is you. And that's why, God calls us to a renewing of your mind. Yeah. Now, one of the things that you need to do is to unlearn. Yeah. You need to press the delete button of your thoughts many times. Um, we try and learn new things, but we very seldom unlearn things that is not needed for us. And that's a practice that you need to learn and develop to do. You need to deliberately take time to take away things from your thoughts that's not good, that's not helpful. Okay, I'll give you an example. I struggled with bad language for a long time. Yeah. Even after my life changed. And I tried everything. I would tell people, I would share, I would, you know, and it didn't change. It was part of my vocabulary. I had to use bad language to speak, and it was like that. Till one day, I found something else, and that was worship. And I began to start when I began to worship. Um, is when my tongue started to slowly get rid of bad language. So I had to unlearn bad language and learn worship. Okay. Um, it's in my mind, but I decided that I would take it away. And now I think it's about more than 25 years. I can't remember any time that I've used bad language. And I don't think I ever would. But I do a lot of worship. In fact, I say this. I'm also a worship leader, and I say this that worship is a lifestyle. You carry with us a lifestyle of worship. And so that's one of the best ways to help change your thoughts, however bad they are. Bring in worship, keep singing songs and read psalms and lift your make worship a lifestyle, and you'll see thoughts changing. Yeah. Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. All right. So talking about mochas. Uh, all right. So I would think so. Mochas is basically taking advantage of people who are kind. Yeah. Mochas can take advantage and make it look like it's all perfect, but that is an addiction. Yeah, it is definitely is an addiction. Um, we do have people that we've met with that go around telling stories of their illnesses and taking advantage, making money, and living. They kind of make a living out of just being a mocha. Yeah. So it is definitely an addiction, and they need to go through a process to come out of it. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, thank you for that. There's somebody, one more person, last question for today, has asked, person who's willing to come out of addiction yet unable to come out of it, is it good for the family to admit him in rehabilitation center forcibly as they are helpless?
Okay. Let me begin by saying how we function. We do not take anybody by force. Studies have shown that it doesn't help. It um, uh, how do I say this? But there are times taking into consideration the situation of the family that you may have to force a person into rehab. And while in the rehab, hopefully he should see the sense of why we had to do that. Um, Also, it is illegal. Legally, you are not supposed to force anybody into a rehab program according to the law of the land. So, yeah, but then situation causes it. So, I would say it's situational in that sense. Yeah, but as an organization, Abhayam does not support that. Okay, but I know of situations where if we didn't force the person into rehab, somebody would have died at home. So, yeah.
So thank you so much for coming here today and sharing with us about your NGO Abhayam as well as about addictions to us. And I believe today we would have you what we heard would have definitely helped many people here to identify what it is amongst their own loved ones and maybe even extend a loving hand to them to help them overcome this addiction. So thank you for coming, and thank you everybody for making time to be here with us, and have a good weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sister Christine. Thank you, Cordelia.